If you would have told Alan from like 6 years ago that road running was an integral part of his life, he would have been like, you're crazy. That's ridiculous. Hey, I'm Alan with REI, and I'm here to share a few tips that keep me motivated to run even when I really don't want to. Growing up, definitely did not like running. It felt like punishment. I grew up with asthma. I still have asthma, and so it definitely felt like a hard thing to get into. I never really thought that I'd like it. I didn't even like playing any sports. It just felt like that wasn't the person that I wanted to be. Somebody asked me if I wanted to go running with them out in the mountains. So I was like, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, I don't know. I only invite the people out to the Sierra that I think can handle it. And I was like, oh man, now I gotta prove that I can go do something with this dude. So I was definitely nervous, and I was wheezing, but I kept up. After kind of getting out of my head a little bit, I just couldn't believe how much I enjoyed it. I mean, running down those first set of switchbacks and like seeing all the mountains around me, I was like, oh, this is running? Like, it doesn't have to be running on a blacktop, like out of breath, knowing that I have to get to math class, like hating everything about that. Like running could also just be connecting to these natural spaces that I love to hike through, and I could just be moving a little bit faster. And trail running I got the bug then, and I haven't stopped since. It definitely was never like, oh, this is a breeze. It was always hard, but it definitely felt less hard as I kept doing it. And I noticed that like, I didn't even know words like cardiovascular, but I noticed that my cardiovascular health was better. And suddenly I can breathe a little bit easier, which seemed counterintuitive. Like if running made me wheeze all my life, why would I keep running? And instead it felt like once I was more in control of the way I ran, that I was actually more in control of my asthma and more in control of my breath. But certainly now, even when I'm out in the mountains, I can keep that breathing centered, and it really makes me feel like, okay, not only am I in control of like my mental state, but also my physical state, which is pretty powerful. So it really changed my life in a lot of really like profound ways. For me, that kind of initial mountain running, trail running experience really led me to be like, oh, this is awesome. What else can I do? So I put on a pair of road running shoes and I started road running by myself. If you would have told Alan from like 6 years ago that road running was an integral part of his life, he would have been like, you're crazy. Like, that's ridiculous. And now it feels like I'm road running perhaps as much or even maybe a little bit more than trail running. Certainly am realistic with myself, and I try to be realistic with others that like, I don't always love it. In fact, I don't love it when I start a lot of the time. Even the thing I love the most, going out and running in the mountains. I mean, as soon as I get out of the car and I put my vest on and I start going up that first hill, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. Like, I'm tired already. I gotta do 15 more miles. This is dumb, And certainly, like, when I road run outside my front door, it takes me a while to start to get into the swing of things. And I have to tell myself, like, it's okay. Like, you just get through the little bit of the hard parts. Yesterday, for example, I went on a 13-mile run. But that first, 4 miles, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll cut it short. Maybe it'll be a 5-mile run. Maybe it'll be an 8-mile run. And then I start to get in the swing of things. Some of the benefits I feel while running, a big one is just de-stressing. I used to think that I only liked running because it made me feel good physically, or because I got to explore all these beautiful places, and those things are still true. But my transition to road running has really allowed me to just say like, oh, this is a really great way to de-stress no matter what. I can be kind of just running around my neighborhood and still feel way less stressed when I come home. So I think that's a big one that I found even while road running. I think one of the big motivating things for me coming up here initially started as exploration. I moved up to the Pacific Northwest, specifically to Seattle. I had been here a few times before. Funny enough, I had been here during the winter, and I kept asking myself, like, why would anybody choose to move up here? And then I found myself choosing to move up here. And so as I did that, I was like, well, I don't know how much longer I'll like this place, so I should probably see a lot of it. And the more I talked to local folks or folks that have been here for a while, they started giving me lots of advice on places to go. And the first few trails I went to explore, it was like jaw-droppingly beautiful. And so then, buying books, looking at trail guides, looking on online communities, it just became this huge space for me to be like, on your days off, what I can do is go explore trails. And I can see more trails if I move a little bit faster, and I can probably move a little faster if I'm running. And up here, there's a plethora of alpine lakes that I pinch myself anytime I get to. So like finding more and more lakes, creating loops, finding all these cool ridges. Like for me, that's been a huge motivating factor. Health and nutrition are definitely motivations for me. As I've started to pay attention to diet more, I've been like, oh, that's how many calories that thing has? Oh, that's how many calories I've burned perhaps? So I think about like, you know, these dates. There's a ton of dates in there and I want to eat all of them, you know? And so when I think about that, I'm like, okay, well, how many hours of running is that? How much time do I have to spend on my feet for me to feel like, okay, that's a sufficient amount of energy to what I actually need, to what I actually burn. So for me, like good food and wanting to eat lots of it is a huge motivator in that way, just from like a calorie standpoint. Also from a health standpoint, I think that running for at least an hour a day, or at least being outside for an hour a day every day, has really helped me feel a lot better just physically. So I've been more intentional with my time outside and just making time for that no matter what. And that's really been a huge boost to my health in general. So being up here in the Pacific Northwest, I found one of the most discouraging things I could do is look at the weather app. It was like, oh, rain forever, you know, like it's just gonna never stop raining. And then kind of being in the apartment and looking for glimpses of kind of like, oh, there's a break in the weather. Maybe I need to get out there. And the motivation was to enjoy the break from the weather, right? And then I started thinking about like, maybe I can enjoy the weather that's like inclement, the weather that's when it's rainy. Maybe that's something to embrace as well. It was a little bit harder to kind of embrace that, but I started to do things like I'll lay out my clothes before I go to bed, or maybe if I didn't lay out my clothes because last night's Alan didn't feel like running that much, but this morning I'm like, okay, I can do it. Before I get up and do anything else, I just roll out of bed and I throw my shorts right on. So then it does two things for me. First, I'm cold. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm cold in shorts. I just switched from like my PJs, my sweats to shorts, and I'm freezing and just got out of the blankets. So it makes me want to move as fast as I can. And second, I already put on the clothes. Like I'm not going to change out of the clothes. So those things have been helpful just to get me outside the door faster. One of the next hurdles is just like I could be doing something else, right? Sunday nights are for television for me. Like all my favorite TV shows happen on Sunday nights. And so I could be doing that instead. But one of the things that's been really interesting, especially with the headphones that I usually run with, is that I'll tend to listen to podcasts. I'll tend to like rent audiobooks. That's been a big thing for me recently. And so I can be listening to stories that I think are meaningful for me, and I can be doing something that's healthy. Another really motivating way I think to get myself outside is to make that my social time. I love, love, love being outside with people. Well, I know it's dark and rainy and it's only 4:30, but they're waiting for me. And so I'll go out there, and I know that I've been on the other end of that, where it's like somebody kind of bails on you and you're like, why did I wake up when it's cold and dark and rainy waiting for this person? I never want to be the person that bails. And so for me, it's really motivating to just make sure that I'm there for that person. And then I just get to spend time with those folks, and it's just so good for my mental health. I think gear is a huge motivator for me because I get so excited about it. You know, like we often look at all these specs and all these features, but really what they translate to are benefits in the experience while you're doing them. So for me, like, I'm so hyped on this vest, and I know that it feels good, but I know it's gonna feel especially good when I'm on the trail and I can access everything, and I'm gonna have that moment where I'm like, I can't believe this feature exists and somebody designed it and I get to use it because I'm outside and I get to use it for what it's intended for. Similarly, a new pair of shoes. These are the Hoka Bondi 7s, and for me, these shoes just make me feel better after I run in them. These are the shoes I put on when I've had a longer run the day before. Maybe I wake up not feeling great. Maybe I had a really kind of bummer day at work, and this shoe will make me feel like, oh, things are a lot better than you think. Like I'll get back and my legs will feel better physically. I'll feel obviously a little bit less stressed out, but like these shoes really excite me because it lets me know the run doesn't have to be hard. Lets me know I can go outside, I can enjoy my run, and I'll be super stoked when I get back. Certainly with metrics tracking, with wearing a watch, with Strava, it does motivate me. I follow people that in my mind are really inspirational, so I can follow them and see like, wow, these folks are doing such cool things, and they think I can do cool things. Like they believe in me, even if that's virtually, if they send me a text, if they comment below my thing. For me, that social like motivation, that social sense of like we can all do cool things, I think has been like eye-opening for me and really encouraging. I mean, I've run the most miles I've ever run this year, which is wild. And I've been the most consistent I've ever been. The watch makes tracking a lot easier. You can certainly track with your phone, but for me also, the watch is a cool piece of gear. So then you get to play with a lot of things and you're like, oh, I can do this, this, this. I can put a map on there. I wonder if I can get my heart rate a little bit higher, a little bit lower. And those kinds of things really motivate me to either push myself or to take it easier, and it allows me to kind of operate within those parameters. For me, I found that because I've been in tough situations where I've had to run maybe after I've run out of water, or I've had to run after I've run out of food, that kind of stuff has kind of put me in a position where I feel like I can react to things that may not go right all the time. And so that mental fortitude I'm really grateful for, because running is hard all the time, but more time on your feet makes it a little bit easier to go further. So what you kind of get through is just like these mental blocks, these mental barriers, and understanding that process allows you to be like, oh, okay, I know what's going on here. I think I can't do anything and I should probably give up. That means I can probably keep going, you know? That means I can probably make it a little bit further without water. That means I can probably look to push a little bit more and my legs will keep me going. So those are a little bit of my motivations when I'm out running, but you might not be me. Like, you know, but I'd love to hear what tips and motivations y'all have. Feel free to leave a comment below. I'd love to read them. I could be like watching like Sunday nights. I probably shouldn't say HBO, right? I can talk about HBO forever.